everybody. I'm Krista DiPaolo. Nice to see everybody. I hereby call this meeting to order. I guess the first order of business is roll call?
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That onboarding really helped me with this meeting. Okay. I don't know everybody in the room, so we'll just say our names.
That's fine.
That's fine, okay. Can we start with you, Dr. Lucabaugh?
Yes, it's just the board members.
Just the board members,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Members and yeah.
Okay. I'm Krista DiPaolo, and I'm here.
Patty Crossan, and I am present.
Next, the approval of minutes. So we need to approve the minutes from the November 12th, 2025 Education Student Services Committee meeting.
Second.
Yes.
Quick question, Patty, taking minutes?
Miss Bisquina was
Thank
taking
you.
this, yes.
Okay. And then we say all in favor to approve the minutes?
We're all in favor.
All right.
Yeah. Motion passed.
Yeah.
You're right on this.
Yes, yes.
I noticed that in last month's minutes. Motion passed. Next is the approval of the agenda. Be it resolved that the Education Student Services Committee approves the January 14th, 2026 Education Student Services Committee agenda as per the attached. Are there any corrections that need to be made that are allowed by PA law?
Second. I'm sorry, I'm trying to be consistent.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Okay. Next one, community comments on agenda items. Are there any community comments? No? Okay, we'll move on. Information items. Item 6.1, upcoming board meetings and topics. Dr. Zaka.
Thank you, Mr. DiPaolo. Thursday, January 15th, we have our Finance Committee meeting at 1 p.m. here. Friday, January 16th, Operations Committee meeting at 11 a.m. here. Tuesday, January 27th, Committee of the Whole School Board meeting, 7 p.m. here. Other topics of discussion, rather not a topic, but I would like to just take a moment to, before we begin, to publicly recognize and offer my condolences to Mrs. Lynch, as well as recognize her 18 years of service and your service as well. And thank you both for being here, being present, and serving Centennial School District. That being said, I would like to now hand the mic over to Mrs. Mealy and what will be our fabulous library team.
Hello. Thank you for the work that you do and the service that you provide. I have with me here two of our faculty members. I have Hope Banshee, who is the librarian at the high school, and I have Pam McNulty, who is the librarian at McDonald Elementary. They are both serving in liaison positions and will help to answer any questions that you might have about the information we provide to you today. Really thinking back to summer reading and the summer book packs of the past, we would like to provide to you some information. So am I steering this, or is Chris doing that? Here we go. Okay. So what you have received is an executive summary with really three options. One from the past, one that was recommended from the previous school board, and one that we from the Office of Teaching and Learning and district would really recommend on top of the others if needed. So I'm going to start by reading that statement at the top to just provide the context and the why, the purpose for this. We do believe that summer reading is really important, and we also believe that building home libraries is critical for our students. So the Centennial School District seeks to ensure that every child has access to high interest, developmentally appropriate books during the summer, supporting literacy engagement with their families and helping to reduce summer learning loss. In response to prior school board action and requests for further exploration, this executive summary examines potential approaches for continuing a summer reading initiative, considering student access, instructional impact, and fiscal responsibility. This work aligns with the district compass priorities of access and opportunity, united effort, and excellence in teaching, and emphasizes the role of family engagement in fostering a love of reading. So option one that is provided there, and it kind of provides for you some pluses and deltas or pros and cons to what that looked like. And one of the biggest limitations of that, which is why the option was removed from consideration by the school board, was because of the amount of money that it costs to provide students with those book packs. Mrs. DiPaolo, you are aware of it from the Parent Advisory Council. Mrs. Crossan and Dr. McGuire, you are aware of the option one summer book pack program that previously existed from being part of the school board for the past several years. Do you have questions, or do you need me to recap what that looked like? Do you prefer I do go through that for any new school board members, or to refresh memories?
I'm good with it, Mrs. Neely, and I know we use ESSER funds, right,
We did.
and we don't have
With the
those
exception of last year, we did find that money,
Okay.
and the school board at the spring meeting said they would not like to have that in the budget for this year. So that option was then removed.
I'm familiar, very familiar with it. Thank you.
Mrs. Crossan, are you, okay, and Dr. McGuire hasn't joined us, I don't believe. Okay. She was on the education committee as well, so she, I know, is familiar with it. She was part of all of that. So option two was requested by the school board to potentially, as a consideration, to replace summer book packs, sending books home with students. And what that request was to explore what it would be to open the district libraries during the summer. And so we have our fabulous librarians here who worked as a team to put together what that might entail. And so in executive summary option two, we have provided for you logistics. I don't know what that says. Let me see. Is that a yes or a don't switch?
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Thanks. Good call. Always listen to Jeff.
Skynet.
Okay, so to open libraries, we recognize the benefits that would provide, and it does align with our mission and our goals and our purpose behind. But there's a lot of challenges to that, and it includes staffing. It's dependent upon and contingent upon the availability of our librarians to be able to staff all 6 libraries, or to be able to staff any of the libraries during the summer. But it also involves transportation, student supervision, library accounts that are tied to students at specific schools, so they would need to attend only the library that their ID is connected to. Book loss and damage, which is already a significant concern because of budget cuts for our librarians, security needs, storage, logistics, many others. If you have questions about any of these, we're happy to answer those. When we really boiled it down, you can see the staffing costs as well as the materials and facilities costs. Those ranges for what it might cost made that overall the potential to be significantly more money than option number 1 for the summer book packs. And so OTL does not recommend that option because it's not necessarily going to eliminate any of the financial burden that we saw with option 1. Do you have questions about any of the challenges that you'd like to explore further?
Not at all, but that was my first thought, that it would be really expensive to do option 2. So thanks for sharing that information.
Is there any way that we can limit it to one library, or?
Do you want to speak to that?
The difficulty with limiting it to one library is that one of the things is when students check out books, like we said, that they're aligned with just that school. So if we had elementary school kids from McDonald signing out books from Davis, returning those books, but also being able to access the ranges into one central database would be difficult. And so it kind of creates well, are we only opening one school for this for this set of kids, and the logistics of trying to get the books back to where they belong, as well as being able to check them out in a efficient manner that would get us the books back, would be difficult. Am I missing something, Pam? Okay.
Was there an option 3?
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah,
Because doing nothing is not an
yes.
option. No, I can't get into this, so I need someone to.
Okay. So let's go back to look at option 3. So option 3 would be the method that we would recommend, and it's really a bit general right now because we just want to seek your input and your feedback into where we can start looking a little bit further and whether or not this is something that can be done for this school year or looking into the future. So we would like to continue and kind of redesign a summer reading program. That could look something like providing only our K2 readers with a summer book pack. It could also look something like providing all K5 students fewer books, so maybe 3 instead of 5 in those summer book packs, because we do believe that building a home library and the access to that at home is a huge part. We would look to reduce costs by approximately 50% while maintaining those high impact outcomes, balancing equity, instructional value, and budget stewardship. We would also look to tie in more of a family connection so that we have that unified effort where we have those books at home, and we did provide activity sheets with the book packs. We would look to do maybe a little bit more with that, maybe create some videos that we can send out through the CSD Weekly and e-alerts that say, hey, families, did you get a chance to read this book? Here's some questions. Here's some questions that you can ask a child who's reading any book. So we will be looking to really strengthen that in those areas for that excellence in teaching, for that unified effort, and for that student-centered focus. And so I will stop there and again, see if, even if I know we had been recommended also digital options, that still costs money, but that is something we could track. So I guess what we're looking to understand is there an amount of money that the school board would be willing to contribute to this very important initiative and program for summer reading? And if so, which direction?
So option 3 does sound good, and you said the cost was 50% less?
We would aim to get it to be below in some configuration to try to get it, yes, to approximately 50%.
Mrs. Mealy?
Yes.
How long have we been doing the book packs?
So this would be the 5th year that it went out, from May of 2022 to May of 2025. So for 4 years.
Yep, yep.
We
The first
distributed
3
summer
years
book
were the
packs.
ESSER funded payment, and then last year, we found that money, we made space for that out of the AOTL budget.
I think option 3 we could sell to the rest of the board. I mean, they need something we need to make sure that they're reading during the summer. We don't want them to go backwards.
We do. And do you have feedback on what specifically, more information on what the board would want to see in that? That would be really helpful.
I think,
Engagement I think what turned people off was the lack of engagement when the survey went out. Not many people responded, and I think that made the board think that people weren't as involved as they actually were.
Correct.
So maybe somehow we can, with the books that go out, maybe even twice a month or, once a week or something, do something engaging in the library itself. Just some kind of activity to, they read this book, maybe we could bring them in and have them do something to engage them, other than that, I know you said you send a sheet out, maybe something in person, if it's possible, I don't know if it's possible, or the cost of that, something to actually engage them. I watch it, I know it's a little weird, but I watch everything at the Homestead Library and the Horsham Library. The big thing is engagement, getting the kids, I know it's not in school, but having them do some kind of a program, something outside on the yard, something that's gonna actually bring them in community and have them attend. If that's possible, I don't know the cost of that, have one of our librarians come out, I mean, that's how they do it in Ocean Grove, so they have the librarian, and it really is successful, like, on the lawn, or discussing what they thought of the book, or something to grasp the families too, and they would respond then to the outreach
Right.
for.
That becomes more tangible than just survey results.
Yes.
Yes. So if it's the pleasure of the Ed Committee, then what we would do as OTLs, we would start to dig deeper into option 3 and start to build that out. And I don't disagree with you that if we do some kind of tangible activity coming back from the summer reading, then that is a little bit more living than just the survey data.
You mentioned it was received well. If you have any information that you can summarize, maybe how you feel it benefits the children, I think just having some information about that, we can say, yes, this is
Sure.
benefit,
Yeah.
and this is what we're seeing.
Yes.
As a
And
result.
we talked about this at a previous school board meeting when Mr. Martin brought it up, the idea that, correlation is not causation, but having students read and trying to push back and delay that summer learning loss, the summer slide, has had an effect on our recent growth, academic growth. It's difficult to pinpoint that and say because of X, Y happened, but it's been one of many factors in school and out of school. Building these home libraries has had an effect on where we've been going and the data we've seen recently.
Do we know if we're one of the only districts in the area that does something like this?
Most, I want to say most, many districts in the county have a required summer reading program. One thing, it's gone through several iterations, and I know Ms. Banshee and Ms. McNulty probably have more historical knowledge on this than I do. But coming out of the pandemic especially, what we wanted to do, it was the goal of the central office is to not make something required, was to really lean into reading for pleasure, reading for enjoyment. And then the dual goal of building back learning loss coming out of the pandemic. So I think that now that we're 4 or 5 years on, pivoting a little bit to what our focus is and building this into something above and beyond, even greater than just the book packs, to your point, for when students come back K-5 from the summer reading, do something with parents and families with the book packs. Could really help build this.
Excellent. Anything to add? All right. And we will continue to collaborate together because we know our librarians have the knowledge, right, to help build this as well. So we appreciate your input and your feedback as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, next we have GPA update. Dr. Caracappa and Mr. Tomlinson, and Mr. Wright.
Thank you, and I'm actually going to kick it off as this was an incredible learning opportunity and experience for me as well. And that if you remember, the reason rationale that we have this presentation and this brief report for you is that we had one of our high school students so eloquently and articulately communicate questions and concerns related to how we calculate GPA at William Tennant High School. Following those questions, comments, charged Dr. Caracappa and I we formed an impromptu committee that was put out to all the staff at William Tennant High School, offering them to participate, and met 2 times, discussed all these agenda or these bullet points up here, what you see and what we're going to go through today. And that committee, I think it's important to note that committee, besides being open to everyone to participate, we had representation from the advanced placement course teachers, veteran experienced teachers, Mr. Tomlinson, our school counselor, who was able to speak at a different level as a school counselor, than many people, as GPA is something, and I don't want to steal any thunder, but GPA is something that is a number that is used for various components and opportunities for our students internally and externally. And there is no better team and group, I think, to speak to GPA than our school counselor. So I'm grateful that you're here and can speak to that, so thank you. Also, that just quickly, that just GPA, I don't want to assume we all understand what GPA, grade point average, means and stands for. And it is a very old system for ultimately comparing students and their academic performance. And I say old, I mean it dates back to the beginning of K-12 public education, and was institutionalized by College Board, trying to level the playing field. There's two different types of GPAs, grade point average. There's the weighted GPA and unweighted GPA. And just very quickly, the weighted GPA is where we are recognizing students and rewarding them, arguably, for taking courses or classes that have a different level of rigor. Where the unweighted would be the letter number, the letter represents the same letter value, numerical value in the same class. Some learnings, if you will, that in some historical context and evolution of to where we are. This is a system we've had in place since I don't misspeak, but early 2000s-ish, as a result of a recognition that we weren't aligned with MBIT and the PIAA standards. So to level the playing field, the GPA has changed, and that we found some historical data and some experienced teachers and veteran teachers who could speak to that. Also, at one point, our cutoff score for passing was changed to reflect the state recommendations and guidelines. From we had a 65 at one point to now 60%. And I'm sorry it's cut off at the bottom, but it does say that some other historical context into how we got to this point is and the committee reflected this in more words, that there is a recognition of a stability with it, the way we calculate GPA, that has proven to be helpful for various components and various opportunities, which we'll speak to. And the idea that that the changes to the GPA were made as a result of not only the PIAA, not only the MBIT, but also a reflection of what I heard was the centennial values, the values of that we recognize, we reward student learning and academic effort, and hence why, and we'll talk about this, we have such a precise GPA scale that it is different than the other surrounding districts. It's different than many districts across the state and the country. And I would add that in the research we did with the committee, that all the schools are all a little bit different, with the weighted and the unweighted. So there's a lot of different components to this, but we're going to stick to GPA unweighted conversation right now, and then we'll talk about, and where we'll get to is, as a result of that question and that student, and as a result of the committee's work, our recommendations for next steps on how to make this even better for the students we serve. So that being said, if I could ask Mr. Tomlinson, could you speak to a little bit of the analysis of our GPA?
Sure. So our system is a precision-based system. So we give quality points for every percent that a student earns, which is very different than a lot of schools who use that continuous or interval or bucket system, where they give it for a range. Like if you get a 90 to a 93, you get this. 94 to 97, you get something else. So again, it really challenges the student to go for every percent, but it also rewards them for every percentage point that they get. And that's the opportunity that our GPA scale offers that not many do, or not any local ones do. Again, so if you were to get a 90%, you're going to be getting 3.5 quality points. You get a 91, you're getting 3.55. You get a 92, 3.6, 3.65. So you're getting adding to that quality point every percentage point that you get. So you don't have a student like me when I went to LaSalle High School who said an A was a 93, and once I got a 93, I was like, okay, I'm done, because I got my A, and that's it. I don't have to worry about it as long as I stay there. But again, our students are gonna get rewarded for every single percentage point that they get. And again, that grade point average is something that we're looking at almost internally first, because you're comparing to other students. Where's the challenge? Where's the rigor? And that's really where that calculation comes in and is extremely helpful. And again, I know we're trying to stay towards the unweighted, but that weighted scale then increases when you take more challenging courses, and that's what colleges are going to look at when we get to if I go to the next slide here. So again, colleges are going to be looking at, although they will look at GPAs and they like these numbers, they also know that those are internal, all right? And every school is different, and again, every state, every school coming from other states, or students applying to schools from every state, or if we have students applying to schools in other states, they don't all have the same calculations. They don't have all the same GPA sets. So we give every school what we call a school profile. So that's going to have all of our honors, all of our AP courses listed, our GPA scale. It's going to have all that data in there for those colleges so that they can understand and how our standards are represented to them. And again, that's all schools do that. When we have students apply to colleges, we utilize a platform called Naviance. We can't even send a transcript without sending a school profile. All right, so every school, every time we send a transcript, that profile goes out, and that's that kind of that game plan of what that means. What are the standards of the school? And then they can use that comparative GPA for students within that profile. Okay, so you can't really compare a student from, Central Bucks to Centennial to somebody in California. All right, they're going to be using that profile to see what your rigor is and where your definition of excellence is as well. All right, and then the colleges themselves, all right, they're going to be recalculating. They're going to be looking for content. They're going to look at, and then they're going to put our GPA in context. So they're going to have their own calculation of how they review our grades. And again, by us not putting an A or a zone or a bucket, they can see the actual percent that the student earned. They can use that tool to recalculate their own GPA, which majority of schools absolutely 100% do. And a lot of schools also use what's called the STARS report, where students are actually inputting their course, their grade, and placing that through that system for schools then to have the student do the work for them to create that. Penn State is one of those, Temple's one of those, Pitt's one of those. I mean, there's a lot of schools. I can't go through them all the way down the coast. You can talk about any school that uses that as well. And again, that is something that helps the universities, again, create their own GPA calculations. So any school is going to be utilizing that form of a profile in order for schools to actually put our GPA in context. Okay? I think that's it for me.
Mr. Tomlinson,
Yes.
that profile, is that the CSS profile?
No,
It's
so no,
not.
the CSS profile, that is actually for financial aid. So that is something that students will fill out as like a next tier towards
is
the
a next
FAFSA.
tier,
So
okay.
schools will look at that for a deeper dive
Yep.
on that.
Yep.
The profile is actually ours. So Centennial we will create a
Gotcha.
document of our data. So we'll put on there our honors courses, our AP courses, our GPA scale.
Gotcha.
We'll put in the percent of students that go to a 4-year, 2-year workforce military. We'll put in the population of our students, the graduating class, the size, all those pieces, brief history of William Tenet. So it's a kind of a one-pager that all schools will get of your high school. And so all high schools will do a version of that. And I will do one more plug, because I did say I go to LaSalle, or I went to LaSalle. We have more opportunity with our GPA, with our profile and our programs than LaSalle does. And it's like north of $34,000 to go there. So like, that's one of the great things about our GPA scale, I think. And I have 2 kids that have gone through the system, 1 current, and that is you get rewarded for each percentage point. There is a benefit to getting an 88 versus an 87. There is a benefit to get a 90 versus 89, and it's not visual. So that profile is ours that we design and create to put out.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Pat, Chris, thank you for the opportunity to come tonight. I do have to say this was our first opportunity we got to work with Dr. Zach on, and I want to thank him because I really do appreciate the way that he came to us with this question and said, hey, have you looked at this? And was really part of our team and asking, I think, the important questions rather than saying, hey, are you doing this or are you doing this? And that really took in a lot of information before we got to some of this. So I want to thank you. They gave me the hard slides. They basically said, "Well, this is where we are, now you get to talk about the good stuff." You know, from my perspective as the principal, I have to guard against, it's a number, you've heard about numbers, you heard about what they do go after. There are other pieces to a grade point average, I think, that go maybe unheard of sometimes. I think there's some history here, and Matt could probably speak more to it, that a lot of times you see GPA systems get changed because they're in a system where too much pressure is put on children because they have to be at the top of the class or they're trying to be the valedictorian. Our system really rewards the people at the top. You know, speaking from experience, my own children went to they go to another district, and, you know, we'll go to a graduation and there'll be 14 valedictorians because they're all at the top because they have a sliding scale. On ours, when you break it down, you earn every point you get. And what I appreciate about the system we're currently in is that our job is to prepare them for their next step. And yes, in college, you'll find colleges are all different too. And we kind of looked at that. And, but I think they're in a better place to understand where they are as a student, right? So when you talk about, like up to this point, we have conversations with course selection just coming up. Am I an honor student? Should I be looking at that? And our job is to prepare them for, okay, now I'm going on to college. Maybe it's 2-year, 4-year, even if it's a trade, to understand where they really are, right? And I think our system, above all others we've looked at, really gives that profile to a student, right? They know. If I ask a student, are you an A student? They'll tell you, like, well, there's an A student that's at a 92, and then there's an A student that's a 97. And that is very different. Like, that is very different. And in some scales we looked at, it, depending on where you are, it was the same. You would be treated the same. So I think that's part of it. The mental health piece is another part I think we really have to be careful with. I think this really does help and prevents us from getting into this every little, you know, tenth of a point counts and so forth. When you talk about rewarding mastery, that's kind of what we're talking about. It's, you know, you got 100, you get 100. That's what it says. You mastered it. It's not you got one wrong, because if you did, you'd have a 98.6, right? So our system really does reward that. And I think we talked to the pressure. The last one, the financial impact. And I'm going to ask Matt to come up because we did want to be transparent with this. And one of the things we really wanted to look at was, because I think when we received the information from the student, it was in comparison to maybe they weren't rewarded for something or they weren't able to participate in something because of the GPA. So one of the things I immediately went to is, are our students being penalized because of our system if they were going out to, you know, so we looked at really these three, if I'm not mistaken, and it just happens to be in the state of Pennsylvania. These three schools, Bloomsburg, Mansfield, and Lock Haven, they're Matt, you might want to tell, you're way more skilled to explain how this works, but essentially they're rewarded based on their GPA this way.
So we were kind of looking at, is there anything that this GPA has negative, right? And I think it was in the middle of the second meeting when it dawned on me there was one thing that I could think of over all the years. And although Commonwealth is broken up into 3 universities, they treat them all the same. So when you apply to the Commonwealth University, that's what you're applying to, you're selecting a campus. They actually award a scholarship based on an unweighted GPA that they do not, and sorry if they're listening or if they get some, that they do not kind of do their own calculation for. And however word you want to use that is they just will take it from any school, utilize that, and they'll do a bucket. If you have a 3.0 to a 3.5, you get this award. If you have a 3.5 to 3.7, you get this award. 3.8 to this, you get this award. Not the greatest system. However, that is the only thing that I could truly think of that our students would be negatively impacted by. That's the only one that I could find. Now, there are other schools that are exactly the opposite. They award it, they look at it, they do the recalculations, they push it. But in all disclosure, that was one that I thought of mid-meeting, and I was like, oh, guys, I do know this one. And frankly, the only reason I know it, because a lot of schools won't share it. I'll talk to a lot of colleges, they'll share their GPA set, they'll share how they do this. I talk to Penn State consistently about how they view our GPA, and it's very good. And we'll go through those things, but a lot of times they don't talk money. And so in this case, I know through factual information, because my own son was on one of those, the weighted GPA got you in this bucket, the unweighted got you in the other bucket, and they explained it to me, and I was very appreciative, but that was a $1,000 difference. That's significant, so it's an interesting piece, and again, that's a $1,000 per year. Now, they get a chunk of 2,000 or 3,000 for this GPA, 3,000 or 4,000 for this. So it's a $1,000 stepper. But again, that was the one that I could think of negative. And when we talked about it, there were other schools that it's the opposite. So it's one of those things where that might be the only one that has a negative tweak to it for those specific channel. As we try and look at other schools for scholarships, they don't work like that. They do the work on the same way they evaluate the student for admission. And they look at that core strength and their own standards to recreate that GPA set. So we wanted to put that on there for disclosure because that was something that we recently uncovered, and that's a conversation I'm definitely going to have with them personally, not in a negative fashion, but as a counselor of like, hey, you should really look at it through a different lens of how you're awarding that. Because we do have those partnerships with some of these schools where our students are recognized, and we have some of these schools as partnerships for dual enrollment and things. So we have students paying money to certain schools to take dual enrollment. So it's going to be beneficial both sides to have that conversation with them. But that was it.
Thank you.
Yep.
And again, like, personally, I do think that is unfair. But we couldn't find that outside those 3 schools. So, again, it's a very small pool, but I just thought we would be transparent because that's, again, we don't want our kids to be penalized for the system that we're using. We just think this is a kind of weird anomaly with these 3 schools. And to be honest with you, can't speak to that, but as a graduate of Bloomsburg, I'm a little disappointed. So, the final thing there is the risk aversion. We are constantly fighting the battle, as you know, because I've stood up here before you, is challenging our kids to challenge themselves, to take more rigorous coursework. I think the way you do that is to show them that, you know, you're not just being given something, that you have to earn this. And that's a lifelong lesson. And, you know, my approach to this was I wanted to be open and hear it if we were hurting our kids. And I think at the end, it's going to come down to a perspective. You know, I mean, from a board's point, from a student's point, from an administrative point, you know, what is it we want that we think what's best for our kid? I do not believe our kids. I don't believe that the current system we have right now is hurting anybody. But again, it's open to someone's perspective. They could probably make the argument against it. We could make 18 more against why it isn't. But the one thing that I keep coming back to over and over again is in this system, you earn what you get. Like nobody's giving you something. You know, and I think that opens up to other avenues where we can investigate how we can be better as a building and you know, as a staff to help our kids in that system.
So I'm going to close it out and share that at this point, we're not recommending or making any decisions about any type of change to our GPA for a number of reasons. One, it wouldn't be fair to the students that are currently being served with this GPA. 2, it would be a bit of a challenge with midstream doing this for the incoming freshman class, and as well as the ramifications as it relates to other areas we haven't even discussed yet. So for instance, the ability of our technological systems to ensure we can make a change like that. What are the, you know, we had a committee, met 2 times, the implications of this internally, externally are very different, but large, and I'm sure we're missing some. So it's our recommendation, what we plan to do, and assess and adjust accordingly. And Dr. Caracappa already has an academic council, to make this part of the a standing agenda item, but not just to discuss this, but there's other questions that came up as a result of this question, such as, how do I know my A in my class is equivalent to the A in your class when you teach the same thing? About teaching and learning, talking about assessment. Are we using the same assessments? Are we assessing the same way? There's a number of questions that came out that will lead us to strengthening, ensuring that the GPA system we have right now is as precise as it needs to be. And as well, do we want to make a recommendation for a change? And as we looked at and talked about, I'm not going to rehash it, but everybody's all over the board with how GPAs are calculated a little bit and tweaked. And there was a comment, or there's a joke, and there's some truth behind the joke, that, well, then why don't we just go to a 6.0 scale? And that when we send out our GPAs, our students will be recognized as the best. And that's obviously not what we're going to do or recommend, but where is that balance? And where's the right thing? So So what we're proposing, what we're planning to do is having as a standing agenda item to talk with the teachers that participate in the academic council at William Tennant High School.
Did anybody reach out to the student, follow up with the student?
Yes, that was, we met with her we met with her immediately after. We met with her today, yesterday or today? Tomorrow, excuse me, to follow up. The other part is, that I should share, thank you for bringing that up, Ms. Crossan, is that we need to assess our graduates. We need to assess our current students, our graduates, and what is their perspective of our GPA and our GPA system. Is it hindering or helping? And we talked about how we could do that through Naviance, which Mr. Tomlinson recognized.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I think the best piece of that, I had no idea that colleges take all your information and then just recalculate. I think if we could tell that student that's what happens, I'm sure you will tell her that is what
Yeah, please.
happens.
So one thing I wanted to add too, I think what's important here is that, to that point, I wanted to wait until, because if she's watching, hello. That way, if she had any questions,
She can
if I already met with her, then I'd have to meet with her again if she had questions. So I figured I would wait till after she saw this, and if she didn't, I can explain it to her. But to your point, like, I think it's very important that we, to look at the scale of things. Like, I feel it's very important that we do a better job of preparing our kids on what to do with the GPA. Like, if I were going out to, for an example, if I were going out for an internship and I had to interview, if maybe that was based on my GPA, the person that may be interviewed may have nothing to do with education. It may not understand that, right? Like a college admissions officer would. I think we have to do a better job of explaining to our kids what they need to do to be prepared to walk into that situation. Do I bring my school profile? Do I talk about that? Do I explain it if that's a piece of it? We think we can embed some of those changes very easily so that our kids are stronger when that information is needed by them. I do believe that a lot of our students know there's a GPA, but I'm not sure they have, how it's calculated or why. If you ask them, I have a 92. I have an 85, right? So they don't really understand where that falls and how it works. So I do believe that's one thing that we can certainly talk about, and I plan to with the academic council. Okay.
I just really appreciate you taking that student's concern so seriously. I'm very impressed.
Well,
Thank
I
you.
will say this, things happen for a reason, and it's some of those things that are just on your agenda sometimes you get, and it was really helpful for us, because I don't think I think we're gonna be better for it. So we really owe her a debt of gratitude for bringing it up, so thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just add one thing?
Yes.
So I think one of the other areas that this does come up for our students at least, because like you said, you didn't know that the colleges do that. So a lot of students don't either. We do what we call a college seminar for all of our juniors.
Yes.
We do it right after course selection. So once we get done course selection right in the next month, we'll move into like a college seminar. That's something we really try and explain to our students that, yeah, you may see a certain GPA that these schools want. That doesn't necessarily translate the number, okay? And so what we do is we counsel them of like, there's zones, there are things that you're doing. What's your grade in your core areas? That's what colleges are gonna look at first. So when they recalculate, they're looking at what's your grade in English, math, science, history, each of those years. Not that the electives aren't important, they obviously are in terms of that holistic approach. But we really tell students, don't look at that number. And then if you do want to feel comfortable, look at our weighted versus their number, and that's going to be closer. But then we'll have conversations of what that means. So I'll give you one quick example, and then I'll shut up, is that Penn State is notorious for like, oh, everybody that got into engineering or Smeal College of Business had a 4.0, okay? And so the first question I have for them is, how? How's that possible? How's every single person have a 4.0 when everybody has these convoluted scales? It's their system that they create that 4.0. So it doesn't necessarily mean that that student had the most rigor. It just means that according to their standard, they had a 91 that equaled a 4.0 to them. And Johnny could have had a 98, and they're the same. And so that's what we work with kids on as well when they're applying to colleges is don't rule out for, those GPA sets. We're going to help you with that range, and don't rule out for money. But we rule out for, we'll get you in that zone, so don't look at those numbers. And we do try and explain that to them in those college seminars that we do with them. However, they have to be listening, they have to be attending. And then when we work with them one-on-one, we still do that. I had these two girls in my office today, they're twins, and they were applying all with the same schools, which we thought was funny. And we were looking at those GPA sets and making sure that they felt comfortable about it too. So we do it individually as well, but that is something in the group setting we do. And then obviously when we introduce Naviance to them and roll out these surveys, we can do that as well. So.
right, so item 7, presentations. The comprehensive plan overview. Mrs. Tomlinson.
You're gonna kick off, or I'll kick off? I'll do the first part, so, okay. All right. Hi, everybody. So we are very excited to share with you an overview of our 2026-2029 comprehensive plan. And I just want to say, moving forward, and what this is, the comp plan is something that's required through the state of Pennsylvania. It's something that we have to do every 3 years, which comes up really quickly, actually. No sooner do you go through the process and then you start to implement, and lo and behold, you're planning for the next one that comes up. But it is really that, like we've said and we put out there, that strategic roadmap. It helps us to identify the instructional priorities, the supports, the systems that we want in place to ensure outcome for students and future readiness. And I think it's really important to mention that the strategic planning and centennial for this iteration of the comprehensive plan started in the winter of 2025. And it is a very long process. And so we wanted to make sure that we intentionally build upon what had been established. We didn't look at the work that was put in place with the previous administration, a lot of changes in our district, and we didn't want to erase any of that work. It was very good work. There's been wonderful progress, and we wanted to build on that and continue that work to make sure that we are serving the needs of our community and that consistency and continuity. One of the things that's not on the slide, but I'm very proud of particularly, is that in many districts, and I've seen this firsthand, the comp plan is a gigantic check in the box. People say, well, we have to do the comp plan. It is laborious. It's tedious at times. There are a lot of things, and I'll show you a slide that speaks to a little bit of that. But many districts do it, and they're like, whew, glad that's out of the way. Not here. One of the things that we intentionally talked about as a team is that we want this comp plan to be a very organic, thriving, living document that really serves as the basis for all of the decisions that we make as a district, and that we can align it and we can say to you as a board, we recommend this particular approach because it's aligned with the plan. It's articulated in the plan. There's a vision. There's a constancy with that. And so what I believe our committee put together absolutely achieves that objective. So I'm very proud of that, and I think that it's really good work that was done there. So now I mentioned the tedious, laborious part. Exhibit A. I'm not going to go through every one of these circles, but as you can see, and we're going to break our presentation this afternoon into 3 segments. The ready segment, that's me. The set segment, that's Dr. Z, and then the go segment, and that is Mrs. Tomlinson. But you can see that each one of these ready, set, and then set A are the required reports that we have to weave in as part of our set component. And then finally the go. There are a significant number of steps that we have to take. And then also inserting the plan into a digitized format for final approval. So we will break it down first, and we're going to begin with the ready piece. And there are 3 primary components in the ready piece. I'm going to talk to you about how we formed a timeline in the committee, how we identified our educational values, and those values are interspersed and connected with every aspect of our plan, and then how we established a mission and a vision that drive the work and serve as an anchor point for all the decisions that we made relative to the plan and its contents. So we'll start with our timeline. And you can see it's quite a timeline. Beginning back in January 25, and all of the green check marks you'll notice are things that have been done to date. Now, just so you know, the plan itself is due March 31st. We have to have it submitted to the state. The committee very intentionally worked on this so that we are not up against that deadline. And so here we are today, January 14th, sharing that draft with you. Yesterday, we posted it to the public for the required 28-day review. And we used the Thought Exchange, which is an online survey component, which also allows for qualitative feedback and for folks to comment on other people's thoughts. This way, then, we can bring it back to our committee to look at some of that feedback and review it By then, the 28-day period will close. And then on February 10th, we'd like to formally present it to you and then take your feedback from that evening. And then on February 24th, bring it back to the full board for final approval. And that would be that second meeting in February. And if there's any adjustments that we need to make in along that timeline, we can do so and still be well within that time frame to get it into the state. One of the things I do want to mention, though, is you see the different committee meetings that we did. And I want to give credit to Mr. Chad Evans from the BCIU. Mr. Evans serves as a liaison for that work, and he was really instrumental in helping the team and the committee move this forward, gave a lot of great feedback along the way. I believe he'll be here at one of those meetings to answer any questions that the board may have relative to that process. But you can see the different the committee meetings that we had, and then the committees and how that committee work went, how we went back to teams, asked for their feedback based on what the committee did, went back to the committee, worked again, went back to teams. So it was really, really important to do that. And I'll speak a little bit about that committee. So it was approximately a 40-member steering committee and a very diverse stakeholder group of students, parents, community members, faculty, staff, administration, board members, folks nominated by their peers. We also took this work into subgroups as well. We shared it with faculty, we shared it with administrative teams, we shared it with principals, we ran it past our parent advisory council one afternoon or one morning. We also assembled a group at William Tennant High School in the library and had our students go through the plan. They gave us feedback on the mission and the vision as well. And so this has been touched along the way by many, many people in our community, many people in our district. And so it's very important to do this work with people and not above people so that it's inclusive of what people want. And I'm going to speak to some of that feedback particularly because when I share with you the mission and vision, there are some things that were very specifically, strongly recommended by our committees and by our students and our focus groups. And so that's how we put together our committees along the way. The second part I wanted to talk about was the stakeholder educational values. And we're excited about this in particular, and it's something you're going to see and you're going to hear a lot about. And this is the Centennial Compass. And kind of like a little precursor, but you know, we're prepared to put this on posters and to have this all across our district. What do I need to do here? What do I not want to do, Mr. Rutz? Extend.
Extend.
All right, extend. All right. Thank you. So you didn't steer Mrs. Mealy wrong, and I'm going to rely on you. Thank you. The compass, think of it this way. Think of the comprehensive plan as the district's big, extensive roadmap. And think of it as a roadmap without a GPS. The compass is what allows us to navigate that roadmap, and it gives us our touch points. These are our values, and we're really proud of this work because it all starts at the top of the compass, or that true north of student-centered focus. And I don't like to read off of a PowerPoint, but this is the one where I'm going to indulge that tendency and do it anyhow. But we believe that every decision has to begin and end with what's best for our students, and we commit to it. So the statements, you'll see two components. There's a we believe and a we commit to each one of them. And so the first is we believe has to be in what's in the best interest of our students, and we commit to examining every action through the lens of student growth and achievement. So when we say every action, not just instructional, every action that when we spend money, every action when we craft policy, every action when we think about our buildings and our operations and our community relations and our engagement, everything we do, is it helping student growth and achievement? And if so, it's a good decision. And then the 4 compass points, and actually, and thank you for this, Mrs. Mealy, and is that we are framing our work using these compass point talks. And so you saw Mrs. Mealy talked a little bit about access and opportunity, unified effort. All of that is going to be included every time we make decisions. And so that unified effort is we believe student success depends on purposeful engagement of our community and our schools. And so we commit to fostering a culture where collaboration, shared responsibility, and mutual accountability are non-negotiable. And that's that unified effort. Side note, unified effort, there's a fancy term for it that we didn't want to use. It's called collective efficacy. Nobody knows what that means, and we didn't want to confuse people. And we do a good job in education of doing that anyhow, using jargon. It's the #1 identified thing in the country. Schools that have unified effort are the highest achieving schools in the country. And that's research-based. It's called collective efficacy. And schools that have that are the top schools. It's from the research of a gentleman named Dr. John Hattie. The second was leadership with integrity. We believe leadership has to be anchored in transparency, empathy, and courage. So we commit to leading by example, communicating openly, acting decisively, and putting students first. The access and opportunity is so important. We believe every student deserves equitable access to opportunities that prepare them for their future. And we commit to breaking down barriers, expanding pathways, and providing resources that ensure all students can thrive. So if there are things that we're doing as a district that are keeping certain student groups from achieving or experiencing the type of experience they deserve, we want to identify that and remove the barrier. We want to make sure that that access is for all and not just for some. And then, of course, excellence in teaching. We are, above all things, a teaching and learning institution. And so we believe high-quality instruction and continuous improvement are essential to student success, and we support that through professional growth, using data to improve instruction, and embracing evidence-based practices that help to bring up our outcomes. So those are the values on which the plan was built, and these are the values that we'll reference every time we make decisions as a district. So a lot of times if you see one or more of these compass points attached to a presentation, it's because it mentions or ties in one of these tenets. The committee then moved to the vision and mission statements. Think of a vision as what? Think of the mission as how. So the vision is what do we want? And the mission, how do you do it? A lot of companies, if you go into an organization, you'll see a mission statement on the wall. There's been a trend to shrink them, because if people don't know what the mission is, if it's a paragraph long, people can't talk about the mission. But if it's a sentence, they know what the mission is. And our committee, after much deliberation, said, we believe that the mission should be to provide that access and opportunity for every student to develop their unique potential in academics, athletics, and the arts. Those 3 A's, the committee unanimously said, we need to put that back in. It was in one of the original ones from years ago. And we said, we think that's very important to put that in. So very simply, what do we want? We want that. Develop your potential in all those things. How will you do it? The mission. We empower the growth of the whole student through exceptional teaching and learning experiences, whether it's in the classroom, on the stage, on the playing field, in the art classroom, you name it. It's all about exceptional teaching and learning. And so with that, I'm going to step aside. We're going to move to the set portion, and Dr. Zachin.
Thank you, Dr. Lugabaugh. Another really great activity and exercise for me as the set or the needs assessment are required. Thank you. Required component of the comprehensive plan is broken down into a very lengthy data analysis of all the data available. Thank you. The supplemental plans, which sounds simple but is not, as well as a really thoughtful, meticulous way of analyzing the strengths and the challenges of our district. And, I think if I could just reflect, before writing a goal, this is the set to me, is taking an authentic look in the mirror as to exactly what we truly need and how do we know we need it, and are we asking all the right people? And Dr. Lugabaugh referenced that this was looked at from a 30,000-foot view before anything was ever set and put into place. There was the thought exchange very early on, a survey of the administrators, survey of the teachers, brought to the parent council, the student advisory group, and all along the way. And the set or needs assessment is part of that as well. These are a few of the data points that are analyzed for setting the goals. And you can see here that the breadth of the data, if you will, is large. That something that stands out, that I want to call it, that it's not just academic achievement, but it is also our student growth, which is the PVOS and achievement measures, but it's also beyond testing. You can see that what opportunities are we providing our students beyond, and recognizing that as data points beyond just student achievement on Keystone, PSSAs, iReady, IXL. You fill in the assessment. There's the other factors are considered as part of the goal setting here. This slide reflects an incredible amount of work from a number of people in this organization. And these are also part of the comprehensive plan, that we have to submit these reports as part of our comprehensive plan. And I don't want to skip over this slide, and I want to ensure that we're recognizing and giving credit where credit's due here. Under the leadership of Mr. Rutz, you've touched and done a number of these plans.
Team.
And our OTL team. Thank you. Dr. Hopkins is carrying the baton for many of these as well, and currently moving many of these forward. This slide is nothing to skip over, and I joked with the team and the planning, like, there's so much that is on this slide. There's so much work. There's so many components to this that if we went through each one of these, we will have touched every single staff member, every single student in this organization in some way. It impacts them and is thought to positively provide the additional opportunities that we need in 2026 and beyond. Here were the strengths identified, and the bold strengths sentence at the top is what PDE says we have to answer. What are our strengths? And I'm just going to highlight a couple of these. That the coordination of fiscal resources, ensuring we are fiscally responsible for our community, that we are maintaining and ensuring a standards-aligned curriculum and assessment, that we are also, which I'm grateful for, that we continue to build upon the excellence of fostering a culture of high expectations. And if I could, and the comprehensive plan is 60+ pages, and this is outlined in great detail and depth in the comprehensive plan, as well as our challenges and the recognized challenges. And again, I want to point out that these are challenges that were brought to the team from the thought exchange, from the survey, from the feedback from the groups. Some of those that I'll highlight are consistency in using instructional strategies, building our capacity as leaders for supporting high quality teaching, ensuring that we are allocating all of our resources equitably. This was feedback for us, for the organization, for the leadership, for the teachers, to build upon and to set our goals around. And once we have those goals, or once we have that data, then we set the goals and we go. Ms. Tomlinson.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Althea Tomlinson. I'm a supervisor here in the district, and I had the great honor and privilege to be able to carry this work from our previous administration and the work of Mr. Gabriel, and now carrying it through to today. And I'm very proud of the work that was started here, and I'm so glad that we have that continuity in the exciting things that are happening here in Centennial, and we get to build upon much of the growth that we have seen over the many years. And again, under the leadership, and I'm going to point out Mr. Rutz here and the OTL team, as well as the student services team, and the many teachers and students, and the great things that we've done here. And so the ready and the set leads us into the go. The GO outlines the work, what we need to do over the next 3 years. And again, it goes like a blink, right? So the past comprehensive plan, that work, we've been working on it, and that continues to lead right into this. And so what we're hoping to do today is to share with you that final plan, right? And look at what were the priorities that were identified by the committee, the goals that were then built from that, and then finally, what are our tangible action steps? So establish priorities. This is a component that is required by the Pennsylvania Department of Education, that we identify key areas of focus. Where do we want to focus our work? And we decided on 2 main buckets. The first bucket being achievement and growth, continuing the work that we saw over the previous comprehensive plan, as well as access and engagement, again, continuing the work from our previous plan. We created 3 priority statements. If we address the areas of challenge and concern around access and engagement, our families, community, faculty, and staff will have what they need to feel a sense of belonging and have support to ensure students are prepared for post-secondary education, career, and life readiness. Priority 1. Priority 2, if we continue to strengthen our curriculum, our core instruction, our systems of support for learners, then our learners will be prepared for post-secondary education, career, and life readiness. That's priority 2. And finally, priority 3 is that if we strengthen our organizational systems to enhance employee efficacy in alignment with improving achievement, growth, access, and engagement, we will be better able to address our priority challenges mentioned in 1 and 2 above. Once the committee establishes these priorities, they look at all of the information that we've done in the ready and in the set, and we establish measurable goals. So goals translate the priorities into specific time-bound outcomes, things that we can measure ourselves. Look back and say, are we continuing to make growth? Are we looking by the end of the 2028-29 school year? Are we going to be able to accomplish these? What do we need to put more effort into? What do we need to put financial resources towards? And the 3 goals, and you'll see the clear alignment with our priorities. Goal number 1 is that by the end of the 2028-29 school year, Centennial will have strengthened access, engagement, thank you, access, engagement, and communication for our diverse stakeholder groups, which includes families, parents, guardians, and students, the community at large, and faculty and staff. Goal number 2 is by the end of the 2028-29 school year, all schools will demonstrate continuous improvement in student success across a variety of growth and achievement measures. And finally, goal number 3, by the end of the 2028-2029 school year, the district will strengthen organizational systems to enhance employee efficacy and student success. Once we've established these goals, we then need to come up with tangible steps to achieve those goals. Now, some of those steps could apply to all 3 of those goals. We'll take one step and it's going to focus on all of those goals. However, in order to make this more clear for the community, what I did is I took some of those steps and aligned them with goals so that you can see where we're looking to go for those specific goals that are here. These are not all of the goals. They are some of the goals, not all of the action steps, but some of the action steps. And if you continue through the plan, you can see more detail as to what we hope to be able to accomplish over the next 3 years, and this is our mission. So action steps for goal number 1. We look to implement a district-wide communication and engagement framework that promotes equitable and multilingual access to information. We want to establish formal parent and community partnerships that are inclusive of all student stakeholder groups, expand engagement events and outreach with an emphasis on communication to increase participation in those events. We also plan to align attendance and intervention protocols. By aligning attendance outreach, and professional learning practices across all schools, focusing on documented use of tiered attendance strategies and intervention logs to support our students coming to school. With goal number 2, the action steps, we will implement a standards-based instructional system, K through 12, to drive continuous student achievement through rigorous and relevant instruction. What this will require is that all teachers anchor practice in clearly communicated learning objectives and utilize strategic formative and summative assessments for ongoing progress monitoring. We also will establish consistent data review and assessment protocols, which will require all teachers to administer and analyze common assessments in each content area and engage in quarterly data reviews with professional learning communities, which could be departments and teams, to identify trends and instructional next steps. And we will sustain foundational student support systems, maintaining and expanding school-wide multi-tiered systems to support, as well as positive behavior systems in K through 12, and align student services to promote academic growth, well-being, and continuous staff improvement. And finally, goal number 3, and the action steps, really focus here on the development and implementation of a portrait of a graduate. And I recognize that that term can be a little bit of that edu speak. What is a portrait of a graduate? What does that exactly mean? So a portrait of a graduate is a term that is used to define a collective vision for student success. What does it mean for a William Tennant High School graduate to be successful? What does it mean to our community, to our families, to our parents, to our teachers, to our students here? And so developing a portrait of a graduate would allow us to identify very specific skills and competencies that the community agrees will help our students to thrive in work and life. And so having this portrait of a graduate is going to help us to align our work, and that's in every department. And I know that Dr. Lukabaha has already mentioned that the comp plan itself is about aligning that work. It's about making sure that it's not just in the classroom, that it's what we're doing in every single department. Are we leading back to where we need to be, where students are that North Star, and that we're making those decisions around being student-centered, and that our foundation is truly excellence in teaching. And so making sure that we are all on the same page and that our organizational system is built around that. So that is our comprehensive overview. We are gathering feedback as part of the required 28-day review. There is a thought exchange that has already been sent out. You can also access that thought exchange here. As Dr. Zachin mentioned, it is a 64-page document that is linked inside of the thought exchange as well as on our website. The first page, front and back, or first 2 pages, is an executive overview. It gives you a snapshot of what we've talked about in these slides today to help it to be something that can be absorbed and understood a little bit more easily than trying to read all 64 pages. However, that draft, so once you see the executive overview, you will then see the comprehensive plan as well as the required induction plan, professional development plan, and our gifted education plan, all connected there in that document. And then we are asking that feedback be provided to us, both qualitative as well as quantitative. And so that we're hoping to have that by most of that feedback, and we've gotten quite a bit of feedback so far. Actually, in just looking, it's been released for 1 day, we've had 90 respondents, which I think is a wonderful return so far on the number of people who've provided feedback, and that we hope to continue to have more community members participate and then be able to look at it as a committee before we present the final to the whole board. So thank you very much. Any questions?
Yes. Thank you. So by the due date, which is March 31st, it gets sent to the state, and then do we get a rating? Like what does the department do with the information?
It says that you have a comp plan and your comp plan has been approved.
Okay.
And so we then move forward with that work. It's possible that they could send it back for revision if we have not submitted all of the necessary parts to the comprehensive plan, but since we've been following through that very lengthy process, I don't believe we'll have anything missing. It's a matter of the community agreement on this is our work moving forward for the next 3 years.
Thank you.
Responses that you've received so far, any of them duplicates, like saying the same thing, or?
Not so far. I mean, with a thought exchange, most individuals will write a comment and then people will like that comment or rate that comment. There is also a quantitative satisfaction scale on the survey, and just looking at the 90 respondent satisfaction scale, most of the respondents are rated 5 to 10. It's a 0 to 10 scale. Most of them rated 5 to 10 as far as satisfaction. Only 4 respondents rated 0 to 4. So 4 respondents out of the 90 put a 0 to 4 response as their satisfaction. So I haven't seen any trends, and I didn't look very deeply into it after one day, just kind of looked at the numbers overall to be able to provide you with how many people have responded, but that's the initial feedback so far.
And on goal 1, how do you gauge the success of that? For goal 1, like how would you gauge that successful?
So we do have some metrics that were built into our planning. So I'm going to go back up to goal 1. We did build metrics in, especially at each of the different levels. Each administrative team did work on creating action plans within their buildings in order to meet and reach these goals. And so it was looking at the number of people who participated in their family nights or their community nights. They looked at the types of groups that they had, the number of groups that they had. So looking to expand that, we looked at the types of resources we provided to families for our communication. We looked at the people who were responding on surveys, thought exchanges, and are there ways that we could communicate that differently? Are there ways that we could improve upon how we have parents participate and helping them to participate? Is there, and we ask questions like, is there a language barrier? Is there a place where we could be able to provide individuals with the information that they need in the way that they need it? And so what can we do to improve that? And so a lot of questions were asked, and we looked at different tasks that we could put into place, again, with these action steps, and it would be going back and looking at, have we been able to put that action step in place, and to what extent has that action step been accomplished? Do we have, if this is what it looked like at the beginning of the plan, what does it look like at the end of the plan, and doing a comparison?
It seems like an incredible amount of work. I'm just looking at this. So sincerely, thank you so much for all the time and work put into it.
It was a wonderful team effort by many, many, many different people. And I am, as Dr. Lukovac said, I'm very proud and very happy to see how many people touched this plan and put the work towards doing great things for our kids. So, thank you.
We'll move on to recommendations. Okay. Recommendations, 8.1, recommendation to move the book descriptions for author visit at McDonald Elementary to the full board for approval. 8.2, recommendation to move the library book order for Klinger Middle School to the full board for purchase approval. 8.3, recommendation to move the library book order for Log College Middle School to the full board for purchase approval. 8.4, recommendation to move the library book order for McDonald Elementary to the full board for purchase approval. And 8.5, recommendation to move the overnight conference request for the 2026 A Kappa Legal Symposium to the full board for approval. All in favor? All of us, okay. And additional public comments by residents. I don't see any residents, so I'm going to say there's no additional comments. And then, any comments or anything before we adjourn? Okay, going to make a motion to adjourn. Patty, second. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.